2018 was a year filled with box office flops. The most striking of these was the spectacular failure of Solo, a Star Wars story. Nobody expected a film from one of the world's most famous and highest-grossing franchises to bomb this badly. Alongside Solo, several other high-budget films failed miserably. Robin Hood, which turned out to be completely irrelevant, sequel to Pacific Rim, Shane Black's once promising The Predator, Red Sparrow with Jennifer Lawrence, The Amusing Alpha, and Ryan Gosling's journey to the moon in First Man. For Disney, it wasn't the most successful year. In addition to Solo, the company suffered flops with two other large-scale projects. A Wrinkle in Time bombed early in the year, and Keira Knightley's The Nutcracker and The Four Realms underwhelmed at the box office by year's end. Still, the film that stands out as the biggest disaster of 2018 is Mortal Engines. From the concept stage, this production, led by Peter Jackson, the acclaimed director of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, generated a lot of interest. However, as often happens, the project faced numerous problems on its way to the screen, eventually crumbling under their weight. Today, we'll explore the reasons behind the failure of Mortal Engines. The movie is based on Philip Reeves' 2001 novel. Jackson acquired the film rights in 2009, shortly after reading the book. Enthralled by Reeves' vivid imagination, Jackson believed that a film based on such a foundation could be monumental. Initially, he planned to direct the adaptation himself, starting production right after The Lovely Bones was released. However, writing the script took much longer than expected. Just when it seemed ready, Jackson had to step in as the director of The Hobbit due to significant production delays. Peter Jackson is a fascinating figure in cinema, boasting an extensive list of directing and producing credits. However, his only true box office successes were The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. While King Kong fell short of studio expectations, Jackson's other films, such as The Frighteners and The Lovely Bones, were outright box office failures. Among his successful producing ventures was District 9, but despite hints at a sequel, none ever materialized. Rumors suggest the issue lay in the film's massive marketing costs. With a $30 million production budget, District 9 earned $200 million at the box office, which would have been a triumph if not for an additional $60 to $70 million spent on marketing. Surprisingly, District 9's home video sales were underwhelming. For comparison, Watchmen, which grossed less than District 9, sold 3 times as many copies on video. Perhaps other issues hampered its potential sequel, but there's been no official explanation. In any case, Jackson moved on to a new fantasy project with a significantly larger budget. Given Jackson's track record, things should have gone smoothly, but the first problem arose during pre-production. The delay meant the trend for teen dystopias had already faded. Films where plucky teenagers overthrow oppressive systems were no longer in vogue. Movies like Divergent were flopping at the box office, which slowed Mortal Engines' already lengthy production. When studios learned of the projected budget, they declined to fund the project. By 2016, Mortal Engines was on the brink of being shelved until Christian Rivers, one of Jackson's close collaborators, expressed interest. Having worked on nearly all of Jackson's films, from The Lord of the Rings to King Kong, Rivers was a seasoned expert in art design and special effects. He quickly produced concept art for the film, which reignited Jackson's enthusiasm. The film was envisioned as a groundbreaking spectacle that would leave audiences in awe. Trusting Rivers, Jackson appointed him to direct a small horror movie, Minutes Past Midnight, likely to give Rivers some directing experience before tackling the larger project. However, the result was underwhelming, with audiences rating the film around 5 out of 10. Despite this, Jackson deemed Rivers' work adequate and made him the director of Mortal Engines. To avoid the overdone trope of all-powerful teenagers, the filmmakers aged up the main characters. In the book, the protagonists are 17 to 18 years old, but the movie portrayed them as adults around 30. Unfortunately, this didn't help. The script retained many hallmarks of the teen dystopia genre, making the shift in character ages feel superficial. Although the book was written long before the teen dystopia trend, it remained largely unnoticed when it would have been a timely adaptation. This delay became a key factor in the film's failure. Filming in New Zealand went smoothly and wrapped in 3 months. However, trouble emerged during test screenings, which were disastrous. With funding cobbled together from various global sources, including some of Jackson's own money, the studio opted not to exceed the $100 million budget for reshoots. Instead, they took the standard approach and edited the film down. After the test screenings, another major problem emerged. Universal Pictures, which handled the film's U.S. distribution and covered 30% of its budget, refused to invest in an advertising campaign. The studio had lost all faith in the film and didn't see the point in spending millions of dollars on a project they deemed a failure, while other international distributors invested in advertising. Universal's decision severely impacted the movie's performance in the U.S. market. Universal was the only major Hollywood studio willing to get involved with Mortal Engines. Before turning to Universal, Jackson had been rejected by Fox, Warner Brothers, and Paramount. Even when Universal agreed, they only invested $30 million. The remaining $70 million was split among Media Rights Capital, Wingnut Films, and Legendary Pictures, who also shared rights to international distribution. Universal's lack of support led to an even more disastrous U.S. box office performance than the film might have otherwise suffered. It grossed only $15 million domestically, a catastrophic result for a $100 million project, comparable to the infamous failure of The Adventures of Pluto Nash. Globally, the numbers were only slightly better, with Mortal Engines earning around $70 million worldwide. There's speculation that the film's budget may have been higher than the official $100 million figure. According to various rumors, the actual production costs ranged from $100 million to $150 million, excluding marketing expenses, which clearly existed to some extent. Ambitious plans for a trilogy about cities roaming the earth were quickly abandoned. The film received lukewarm reviews from critics and audiences alike, making any hope for a sequel impossible. Many believe the movie's colossal failure was inevitable, with some predicting its downfall long before its release. The project faced numerous issues that sapped public interest even before it hit theaters. Chief among them was the waning popularity of the teen dystopia genre, a convoluted plot that was difficult to market, and, perhaps most critically, the fact that Philip Reeve's book was virtually unknown in the U.S., leaving the adaptation with no built-in audience. The casting choices also drew criticism. Many felt that having a star on the poster could have boosted audience interest. Instead, the film's most notable actor was Hugo Weaving, who, while talented, wasn't a big enough name to draw crowds. His casting was Peter Jackson's decision. Universal had suggested casting 2 major stars in the lead roles, but Jackson insisted on using fresh faces. The film's release date also raised eyebrows. Mortal Engines debuted on the same day as the animated Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Compounding the issue, Clint Eastwood's The Mule was also released that day and managed to outperform Mortal Engines at the box office. While the crowded release schedule certainly didn't help, it's unlikely that shifting the date would have significantly changed the outcome. When it became clear that the film would flop in the U.S., the creators pinned their hopes on the Chinese market to salvage it. Initial signs suggested the film might resonate with Chinese audiences, but it ended up grossing only $7 million in China. The book's author praised the filmmakers for their courage and admitted he found aspects of the movie interesting. However, he expressed regret that some elements of the book were omitted or watered down. For example, the protagonist's extreme disfigurement was softened to achieve a PG-13 rating, a decision that arguably diluted the story's impact. A more violent, visually daring approach with unconventional-looking characters might have appealed more to audiences. Additionally, the climactic battle could have been far more dramatic had it followed the book's ending. It's apparent the filmmakers had hoped to set the stage for a franchise. Christian Rivers' career as a director may have come to an end with this film. The direction was widely criticized, and even a director of James Cameron's caliber might have struggled with such a flawed script. Despite the abundance of special effects, the film lacked the visual spectacle audiences expected. Peter Jackson refrained from criticizing the film, offering Rivers the standard public praise. Privately, it's hard not to imagine Jackson giving Rivers, who once won an Oscar for his special effects on King Kong, a tough critique behind closed doors. Universal Pictures and Media Rights Capital also declined to comment on the film's failure. Some reports estimate the total losses for all parties involved to be between $125 million and $150 million, though it's unclear which studio bore the brunt of the financial hit. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and stay tuned.